G'day, you're here with Ryan Babbage from Strategy Hub Australia, and I am with the amazing Philip Bateman today, and I wanted to introduce him as he is a communication specialist in the industry of media advertising. He does quite a few other things with impact investing, and I'll let him do the secondary intro.
Thanks very much to whoever's out there that's going to be watching this. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, Ryan. I think we're going to be talking about leadership and Industry 4.0, and I'm fascinated about, well, the world really, and I'm here to craft stories and systems that shape the world for the betterment of humanity. That's what my team and I are about, and getting to work with people like Ryan and other folks that are out there. There's a lot that needs to be done, and digital's really misunderstood and super powerful. So it's a pretty exciting time to be talking about this stuff.
Absolutely. As we enter Industry 4.0, do you think leadership in the era is the same as it is, or is the same as it was before? How different do you think it's going to be in the new evolution?
I think there's always been long cycles for any kind of change and succession. Whilst it's a challenge, you've also got the thing that people who came in on the shop floor in whatever industry and then moved into management, moved into senior management, moved into the C-level and are now sitting on the board. That is generational cycles. Like, it's one thing to say, oh, we need change, we need new skills, and we do, though those people have to move through the system as well. So as much as I think change, like, things need to be new, leadership needs to be new, it's bound by human life cycle. You know, they're wrapped up together. I think the fundamentals of gathering, aligning, and directing a team are the same as they've ever been. There's just a lot more challenge to be aware of with the amount of information digital's presenting to people. And it's really, I think the difference is about data-based metrics. Previously, a lot of gut instinct supported leadership, whereas these days, there's so much data. What data are we going to use? How do we integrate that data? Does that data support our strategic vision? Do we have a strategic vision that enables us to utilize data? There's a lot going on.
Absolutely. What do you think are the characteristics of a great leader in this digital era?
Characteristics of a great leader. Well, I'm really fascinated by the idea of idea-based meritocracies and being hard on the problem and soft on the people. There's this new wave of millennials. I mean, I'm a Gen Xer myself, and we want to know we're contributing to a mission-based organization. We have a lot of expectations. We have, a lot of requirement to be babysat and valued highly, even though we may not have the skills yet, and to be treated without condescension in that space that lacks humility. Yeah. And for a lot of 50 and 60-year-old strident kind of people that have got discipline and have done the hard yards and have done the 60-hour weeks, that can be really irritating. I think a lot of them can really just want to slap the kids around, and that still doesn't mean you're gonna get the best out of them. Yeah. And this tension is what I really see in organizations. The other thing is, it's to not be a digital native is so challenging. Like, I'm just on the cusp. I've just seen technology, like internet came in when I was 15. I've tracked with it. I've learned it. I've been hands-on inside of it. 5 years beyond me, people are digital natives. And 5 years beyond that, people have grown up with access to broadband. And so don't know what a modem is, don't know what that dial-up did for our lives. Yeah. So there's massive shifts there around that awareness. I think that is really what characterizes a good leader.
You said something that resonated with me. You said hard on the problem and soft on the people. I love that, and I'll repeat that if you don't mind, and further things.
Yeah, I'm quoting the Harvard system of principled negotiation there.
Awesome.
Around drawing out interest-based, because if two parties want to negotiate, what's the interest? If we figure out what our interests are, we can draw solutions between the parties. Though a lot of people are soft on the problem and hard on the person, and we need to be hard on the problem and soft on the people. There's more to it, but it's getting to yes, Fisher and Urey. is the book. It's fantastic.
How can we get those people up to speed with the rate of change that we're experiencing now? If you were to lead a new team of people tomorrow, how would you get them all up to speed with what's required with the pace of learning to solve the current problems that the company may be facing?
Well, I'm going through hiring and acquisition at the moment in certain areas, and part of what I'm baking in is time. It's simply that. It's time to do these things. I don't understand, and well, I do understand why it doesn't work, because I watch people who have stressed out teams who are working to capacity at 40, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week in some cases, come along with this idea that, oh, we need to do digital transformation, so suddenly we're going to upskill our whole workforce on the necessity of this thing without reducing their current workload. And they're already over capacity. So that's why everybody's getting crap results, because most people would be happy working 4 days on, 3 days off. So to be working 5 days and then doing your whole life on a Saturday and then being told you need to reskill for not change, but a new way of thinking and processing, which then flows. I mean, this leads on to a discussion about agile methodologies and large-scale digital transformation projects, and I've got that in notes in relation to some of your questions, so I think we're going to get there.
Yeah, we will. So what is it like? I mean, what does success mean in management in the digital age to you?
Success in the digital age. I think it's about speed to iteration, the ability to conceive of something, test it, well, conceive it, construct a demonstration of it. This is essentially test and measure. How quickly can we take ideas and get them implemented? And how quickly can we create change in our organization? That, to me, is what success in a digital environment looks like, because there's so much going on. It is this transition to agile ways of working rather than traditional waterfall methodology, which is a bit of a furphy. Like, there is a agile and waterfall are hybrids of the same thing, and really it's all just based off Gantt charts and how you look at it, but that's a different discussion. But the idea of being quick and nimble and to be able to go, hey, we want to send this to this person. There may be a whole bunch of people. There's corporate style guides. There's people who need to approve it. It needs to get to the lawyers. It needs to have operational considerations. It may go into an infrastructure layer that then touches on a whole lot of other points that need to be then updated because it relates to suppliers. Understanding that, which then relates to your Internet of Things, your knowledge management, so on and so forth, your procedures. It's just the complexity is mind-numbing. And managing that is success. Like being able to know what the hell something's going to impact assessments, really. It's like, how quickly can you do an impact assessment of what a change is going to create, and then how quickly can you create that change and implement it and update everything so that your ship is going this way and you're not creating digital what do I call it, debt, IT debt, essentially. You know, like every time I implement something and don't document it properly, I'm creating IT debt, and that's got interest on it, and it has to be paid back
at some stage. Absolutely. Now, there's a lot to unpack there. You said quite a few things that were important, and what you've reversed to our audience today is kind of what I'm hearing, is that you've said speed to MVP is highly important. So generation of minimal viable product, theoretically finding new IP, finding a way to produce a minimal viable product of that new IP.
And if I may, I really don't like the term minimal viable product, because it sounds like we're just doing the bare necessity, and that's not good enough these days. We actually need to craft things that, if the definition of MVP is it achieves what we're setting out to do, rather than it's just this scrappy thing that, you know.
Well, generally, from my understanding, an MVP is just, it is the minimal stage that you would go to prove the introduction value of something.
Yep.
Then it gets iterated, and then you'll get a MVE, which will be your minimal viable ecosystem that you
Right, cool.
onboard
Yep.
to help you improve your MVE.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from you is that the rapid cycling and speed of doing that over and over again gets you better results. And helping the learning cycle within your organization to achieve those outcomes is pretty much where it's at.
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of this is based off my exposure to Atlassian, because I've seen them become a unicorn. And a whole bunch of companies in Australia don't know who Atlassian are, but they probably all know what Jira is, because they've all got it. And they just revolutionized how things are done. Like, they started with software, and now everybody's using it. Because when something goes wrong, using Agile, using Atlassian's GitHub, you can figure out what bit went wrong. And so companies, like, rather than, basically they would implement a change every 6 months.
Yeah.
And then this is like software changes that run like mining trucks and things. You got to figure out what goes wrong in 6 months worth of work. Whereas if you release daily, you've only got to figure out what you did at lunchtime yesterday that went wrong. It's so much quicker. The impact is so much smaller.
Awesome. So what do you think makes up a good team, and what traits should a digital leader be looking for in their team?
I feel like I fired this answer at you previously, which was around idea-based meritocracy and hard on the people and hard on the problem and soft on the people.
Absolutely. Just checking.
Yeah. Hey.
So what do you think are the best challenges for leaders in this digital era? We've also been through that.
Yeah.
And
I'd say to that, the biggest challenges I perceive are about the pace of change and keeping ahead of it. Because the way software is being created, the scale of disruption, the fact that people are just like, it feels like the Wild West in a number of ways for organizations that are coming along and being like, we can go from this point to this point way quicker, and we can skip everybody in it, or we can include them in a more efficient way that also provides value to them. But that means they fundamentally need to shift how their business is structured to serve the new value and get rid of the wastage that really is the fat. Really, they need to cut the fat off from the old way of working. And then you pile investor expectations onto that about quarterly earning targets or earn-out targets or growth targets, because a lot of people aren't just, in the digital space at least, from my understanding, they're not doing it on their own. They're not just, 5 guys in a garage becoming the next Google. They're like, we got a concept, we got a whole bunch of venture funding behind us, we got, we're going to go to IPO, and now I see them on LinkedIn. They're like, we're hiring 1,000 positions in 3 countries. It's like, good luck with that. Yeah. Good luck getting your cultural growth,
I guess another fundamental question that I'll throw at you is, because there is so much new out there, how do you weed through what new is relevant for your organization, what to take on board, what to invest in, and how to keep your people enthusiastic in the continuation of new?
At first I was going to say, there's a few things popped up for me. Adherence to mission. It doesn't matter if it's new. It doesn't matter if it's old. Does it support us doing what we're here to do?
Exactly.
Do we all know what we're here to do? Are the people who are working for me and with me motivated by the mission? Because if not, you're going to have problems being hard on the problem and soft on the people.
Yeah.
Because the people are going to make it about them rather than adhering to... And I'm throwing bits of like Ray Dalio's principles and stuff out here around idea-based meritocracies. A lot of things, is anything really new? Can anything new really be invented? I mean, if we're talking about technology layers, blockchain, for example, presents a new way of doing things, though the things within that are simply artifice of these new parameters within which we're playing. So what is new? I mean, if you're inventing a new polymer and you get into, enter Mars and not burn up because you've invented this thing, sure, it's new. But beyond that, I mean, and it's not new if you're a material scientist. It's just another output. So the idea of new it's a semantic discussion. But if it's new to you and it helps you do what you're trying to do and it helps you do it quicker,
Yeah.
then it factors into all of the different aspects of surviving in a climate where you got to keep growing a business and people are looking to poach your staff and acquire you, and you all want to hit targets and that kind of thing.
So also what I'm hearing is that new is just a version of the old, but a better version, a more usable, more functional version, or a more blinged out version.
Yeah, if we want to see
more
everything
enjoyable
old as
version.
new again, we can do that.
Awesome.
But there's a lot of, I mean, like Mark Forged, who are a 3D printing company. What they're doing is incredible. Now that everybody's got 3D printers and we're 3D printing titanium, you know, like I'm picking up my phone and I'm using the LiDAR scanner in it to like scan a glass, and then I'm having printed in titanium in the other room.
Yeah.
Like, and the army are using that for, you know, parts remanufacturing in the fields and stuff. That sort of stuff's awesome.
A client of mine just got a 3D printed hip replacement.
Totally.
So, I mean, it's amazing what tech can do. So
If I lose a limb, I'm going to have a 3D printer. I'm going to be knocking a new one out each day and running down the road with it and match my wallet or whatever it is.
So what do you think is the DNA of the leaders of tomorrow? You know, what do you think will be requirements for leaders of tomorrow?
We're never going to get away from money as the fuel for business. So sound understanding of finance. And really what's coming through for me here is when I was sitting down thinking about joining boards and looking at what different boards are looking for. And there was this consistent thing that, well, everything we can buy, we don't need on a board, because we can buy a new marketing team, we can buy a new this, we can buy a new that. But if somebody doesn't understand strategy and they don't understand finance, we're not going anywhere and we're not able to successfully fund it. So, you know, you don't need a blockchain expert to run a company.
Yeah.
You need somebody who can get the team going in the right direction,
Sure.
understand the problems before they arise, or at least deal with them effectively when they do arise, because, you know, everything's on the way, it's not in the way.
Yeah. Some CEOs I've spoken to lately have said that they will require an even greater, a heightened awareness of things. They're already aware, but with the pace of change increasing so much, their awareness level needs to be far more alert. They need to have a wider board to play on. They got to foresee what would transpire without it happening, or hedge their bets in those spaces and then pick a lane.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what some of them have reversed back to me, and I'd like to hear maybe what you think. Are you in agreement with that or not?
Absolutely. And also to me, as I was listening to you talk, waiting to speak, I was going to say the digital, if you're a digital native business and you don't have that native digital experience capacity in your core leadership team, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, how do you expect to compete? How do you expect to survive? I mean, people who are passionate fishermen wake up dreaming about fish. So you're never going to catch a better fish than that guy. If that's where you're competing, if that's where your organization is going, you got to hire for this stuff. You know, you got to figure out a way to keep people motivated enough. I know definitely I've had an experience of a CEO talking to me about his whole mission being that he just puts people in the bottom of his funnel because he gets about 2.5 years out of a team member before they go off onto their next thing. But then I meet other organizations that have retention rates of 10 and 15 years. And that's incredible, and that's because they're more mission aligned.
So how do you think, would you be able to provide me an example of how you would motivate a future team, keep them motivated?
I think there's a lot to be said around, there's a difference between people who want to be leaders and people who want to be managers, firstly.
Yeah.
The people who want to carve out a piece of it for themselves, who want equity, who want to grow companies, you know, being cognizant of the fact that nobody's ever going to care about my company as much as I do.
Yeah.
And getting over that has been really useful.
Yeah.
Because I used to be confused by it.
Yeah.
And then I realized, well, it's not their dream.
Yeah.
That said, having somebody in a position and clearly articulating to them, once you've achieved this, this, and this, you'll be here, and then you'll get this, this, and this, and when you've achieved this, this, and this, you'll be there. That level of, wouldn't call it performance management, but that level of structuring somebody's HR, I don't even like saying human resources really, but their direction forwards, rather than just doing performance assessments with them and then giving them a bonus based on whether or not they hit that point. I think people want to know how they belong and where they're going and what they can do. If we make it easy for them to understand what they're going to learn, they can see a path forwards, because without that, then all they're comparing is what they've learned here and what they can get paid somewhere else for what they've learned.
Yeah.
So giving them that path forward,
Yeah.
so you're going here to learn these things to get these things. I think people intrinsically aren't as motivated as by money as a lot of people may expect.
So do you think the gap between a leader and a manager is going to widen or narrow?
Oh, it's different. Well, yeah. I mean, IBM was saying ages ago, like 10 years ago, they were like, just teach people how to talk, because we can teach them all the technical skills. You know, soft skills as we move into a hyper digitized, less labor intensive, like less hands-on economy is going to be the be all and end all of organizational success. It's the backbone of it. It's like, can you talk in boardrooms? Can you motivate your people? Can you get to them on an emotional level and make them feel safe and secure? The world's just going to get crazier.
Yeah. A tool that I've been using to help motivate my team, not that they're not already motivated, but by always challenging them with new things. So always saying to them, well, if this was to take shape in the market, what would we do? What would you do? How would you develop that within your segment? And how would we reverse that to our audience? And I felt like that's given them some ownership over some space, and they've been able to come out and give me the true feelings that they have about a product without listening to what I think or what someone else thinks or what another specialist thinks. And that addition, that inclusiveness of being part of that is a motivator. So anyway, that's what I've just experienced with me.
And I'd be fascinated to layer onto that the psychology, like the psychological makeup and the motivators and drivers of the people that work with you in a team. Because it was put to me by a very good friend. She's a data scientist researcher and does large scale like national projects on like NDIS and things like this. She's like, a lot of people just want to go to work and come home again. They don't want to have, deep, challenging, like lean in, be picked up. We got to keep what if. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Just really looking at who people are and why they do what they do and what they want.
I guess a well-oiled engine is going to be, you've got the people that are specialists at what they do, and only the change that occurs around what they do is the gap they need to learn, but they don't necessarily need to learn the whole engine.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there'll be people that will stay at that level and will love what they do and will be pivotal to the business because they're just consistent and consistently good and efficient at what they do. Then there's layers above that where different parts of the engine will change out. We'll have larger pistons or smaller pistons, or this will happen or that will happen. And it's those types of people that need to be forward-thinking, dependent on how fast the car needs to go, how quick the company needs to develop, or what risks it's facing and how to mitigate those risks. So the top layer would then thrash out those discussions, and they should have those regularly, so that there's always input from the top and the bottom. But I guess you don't need to force people to do what they don't want to do when they're comfortable just doing what they're doing, and it doesn't rock the boat further up. But if all things need to change, then I guess it's a total change.
Yeah, well, we were talking, everybody's doing digital transformation projects at the moment because they've got like decades old legacy systems that are so resource intensive and so costly that starting greenfield if you can manage the data migration aspect of it, which is really a lot easier than most people imagine. They just overcomplicate what they think they need, and you don't. You just need what you need to go forwards and have a historical snapshot. But yeah, if you're going to create change, having team leads and champions, teaching them and then letting it flow out, because managers need leaders and leaders need managers. And if we confuse the two, and if we want people to take on that extra 10%, as we said right back at the start, got to give them the time to learn it.
Absolutely.
Can't just tell them on the way home at the door at 5 p.m, by the way, heard of blockchain? Yeah.
So thoroughly enjoying our conversation, just mindful of time and keeping on track. I just wanted to ask you one last question. What do you believe are some opportunities that will be created by the digital age?
Something I always loved about the internet is, firstly, people thought it would mean ubiquitously, you've got this global audience, we'll all be billionaires. But really what it allowed people to do is, like, if you like green socks and red hats, you can go find all the other people who like green socks and red hats. You can link up with them, you can serve them. Etsy, is a perfect example of this. You can find your niche. And I really think the internet's going to allow that hyper niching and that hyper value creation to be, not hyper value creation, but that value creation around very distinct segments to flourish. Because that said, though, if we're talking about large manufacturing businesses that need a large customer base, it's a completely different kind of thing. But so, and efficiency of supply chains and traceability. I think we're getting into this new age now when we look back at like strawberries in Australia having things in them, and other such problems, and melamine and baby formula and stuff. And just fish supplies, and just basically all the people it's an interesting, like, the hammer's about to come down. Everybody who's put a stamp or a logo on something that said this is this, and I sit there looking at all the tuna things going, which was actually grown in a field in Thailand and full of pesticides and things, and what's sustainably caught mean? Line and pole caught, but I mean, we don't have any fisheries left. And everybody's got like a logo which says whatever. We're going to be able to prove it.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm going to be able to pick up my phone and look at it. I'm already doing it. Like, I'm looking at stuff, scanning the barcode and being like, wow, that came from there. And I can see a picture of it. Yeah. And, that's exciting.
I agree.
From a consumer perspective, I think it's terrifying from a business perspective. Yeah. Like the
amount of transparency that you're going to need to show.
Totally, yeah.
To satisfy the consumer mind space.
And this is why I'm such an advocate for communications for business, because as was shown by Nestle when Greenpeace came out with a Kit Kat advert where they pulled a gorilla's fingers out of a Kit Kat, snapped it in half and blood went everywhere. And they launched it at 6 p.m. on Friday because they knew Nestle shut their corporate comms office in the particular region they did it at 5 p.m. So they had like 2.5 days of damage build up to the brand. And now Nestle run 3 distinct social media monitoring centers in 3 geographic locations to give them 8 hours on 24/7 coverage. Because if you're not ready to respond and you don't know what you're going to say, you're putting your reputation in the hands of angry people on Facebook, and you're going to get wrecked. You're just going to get wrecked. So it's a good time to get ahead of the curve in all the ways.
Absolutely. Well, I just wanted to thank you for your time. You've invested in answering all of my questions, and it was a pleasure talking to you. And I'd like to do it again.
Great.
And so we'll book a time. Maybe we'll talk about blockchain next time and continue with our Industry 4.0 discussions.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much. And Ryan Babbage from Strategy Hub and Mr. Philip Bateman from Bravo Charlie.
Thanks.
Thank you.